Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Access. And we had a bit of a technical difficulty here because of a hiss in the background. And it turns out that the hiss in the background is actually crickets. And I was actually thinking about crickets right before the show. And the thing I was thinking about, and I don't know if this rings true with any of you out there, is that wherever you grow up, there is a certain green that you are used to, and there's a certain blue that you are used to if you're by the sea. And then it turns out, there is also a certain cricket sound that you are used to. And, once I moved to the US when I was 18, it looks like aliens came in and replaced everything. Like the colors, the trees are a little bit more saturated green than they ought to be. And the blue is like not as blue as it ought to be. And then the damn crickets in the US, they're just so slow. They're like union crickets or something. They just kind of like grind away kind of slowly as opposed to how crickets ought to be. So when I'm back in my home waters, so to speak, then it's a very different deal. The trees are the right color, the sea is the right color, and the crickets have a sense of urgency to them. I kind of like it. It's a dynamic environment. This is what I like to surround myself with. They are annoying as hell. I spent my teenage years thinking about different implements, mostly involving little air-powered needle-throwing devices that I could use to kill crickets. They're really annoying. I apologize for the hiss in the background, but that's what they are. Crickets are, of course, what's happening in the crypto Twitter world when it comes to deliveries. There is a lot of talk about this, that, and the other, mostly about projects that are not delivering anything. They're not used to delivering. And crypto Twitter eats it up. There's a crowd out there, traders, they trade on these news as if it's going to amount to anything. They're mostly trading the money among themselves. They all buy the same thing because of the same reasons. It goes up and they try to get out before the other guys in the same crowd get out. That's just no way to live. It's not how I do things. The thing that's important is to pick the projects that have long-term longevity. Anyhow, with that said, let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the world, in crypto. Let's start with my most important message. We are hiring. In a world where I'm bombarded with messages from different projects about how they're cutting this, cutting that, how large public companies are letting go of huge percentages of their employees, I am hiring as fast as I can at Ava Labs. All my colleagues are hiring. We have a couple of subsidiary companies. They are hiring. So come work with us. If you're excited, come apply. We have a range of opportunities available to people with a technical background. We have a range of opportunities available to marketing people. We have a range of opportunities available to biz dev people. We have, unlike everyone else, we have the right infrastructure for scalable blockchains. And unlike everybody else, we have a healthy ecosystem and a healthy company that stands to benefit just in the right amount from the growth that's going to happen in this space. So we're thrilled. And if you're excited about the space, please apply the online materials. I think it's part of the application process. Figure it out. If you can't figure that out, then don't DM me. Just this is part of the figure it out and apply, please. And also don't DM me just because you want a job. I'm not in the path of most employment. I have people who actually interview and we have a process for it, but we are thrilled and we love to work with world leaders. The standard for hires is actually very high. It turns out because we have a company that is based on building excellent products. But do apply if you're interested and you want to actually have a huge impact on the world. So number two, let's talk a little bit about gaming. This is not my expertise. I kind of, when I think of gaming, I think of Frogger, okay? So just to date myself. When Pong came out, it was cool. I remember Pong. And so the world has come a long way, and now we have games on chain. And Kevin decided, there's a constant fight between me and Kevin behind the scenes. And it just goes like this: Kevin, don't leak alpha. And Kevin's like, okay, I won't. And then he goes in and leaks alpha. But this time, he's like, I want to tweet something about all the gaming stuff. Again, like there's so much happening. I can't keep my mouth shut. And so he's going to go and blab something as usual. So we tried to corral him in, and we decided, okay, you can only blab about those things that are public. There's a whole pipeline that you don't get to talk about. So there was a compromise, and so he ended up mentioning just a few of the things that are in the pipeline. The pipeline is incredibly deep, and I keep saying this, and it's going to be kind of fun as it comes out. But what's the main message here? When you have a chain that actually scales, it kind of scales. It works. You don't even notice it. These games are coming online. You guys aren't noticing it. You guys were complaining to no end about rising fees. Rising fees is what you get when you don't have a chain that scales. So because we heard you, we made it incredibly easy to launch subnets, and we essentially greased the wheels, so to speak, with the first couple of installations of subnets, where we helped the team deploy their network, their game, their DApp, whatever it might be. And now that people are seeing this, they're flocking to the chain that actually does scale. I don't need to sell you in on dank proto, moon math with RCAs, etc., etc. I don't have to bedazzle you. I've got the credentials. I've done the academic thing. I've written papers with more Greek letters in them than I think there are in the Greek alphabet. Actually, I've run out, and I've had to use Aleph too. So, LaTeX, I've got it, but we don't use it. We actually build things that work, and if you're doing the right stuff, you don't need that level of sophistry. So instead, we have a whole bunch of people coming to us and saying we'd love to launch on you, and per our agreement with Kevin, we made him talk only about those companies that have been publicly announced. And first one is Shrapnel. It's an FPS game that has a powerhouse team. It's got backgrounds from Halo, Call of Duty, Westworld, and producers. This is a big deal. This is a AAA game. So it's coming online on a subnet near you, supported by Avalanche, of course, under the Avalanche umbrella, supported by the Core wallet, of course. And, and there's a whole bunch of people who still make noise. How is value going to accrue to the AVAX coin? Just stay put, okay? I told you a whole bunch of things. I told you 30,000 tweets. There are a couple of them that are a little off, but 30,000 tweets, and every time I said, we will do this and it will have this impact. When it's in a technical area, I nailed it. And so I'm telling you again, these guys are coming online soon, and it's a real fantastic game. And there will be value accruing to AVAX that I think is going to be very exciting to watch. Number 2, Castle Crush. It's a Web 2 game. It's a top 10 gaming mobile publisher. It has 1 million monthly active users. They are converting the Web 2 game to Web 3. This is a big step up for Wildlife Studios. And we'll see how they do it. It's not the case that every Web 3 experiment pays off, but it probably will because they're early. They, I think, will end up getting quite a bit of mind share, if nothing else. And I think the world will see how we can handle such large user communities on a subnet. Oh, the Castle Crush Mint is happening. I think there was some airdrop of 19,000 cards. The mint cost 0.2 cents. So 0.2 cents, this gets kind of confusing when people think about cents. Some of you have heard of Verizon Math. If you want to have a funny time, you can Google Verizon Math and listen to the phone call between this guy who thought he was going to be charged 0.02 cents, and he ended up getting $0.02. So it's like 100-fold more. In any case, this is really 1/5 of a cent. So it's just like no money for a mint operation. It was super cheap to do, and some of the minted cards look awesome. And, this is how it works. This is how it's supposed to work. Next up, Pocket Worlds. Pocket Worlds is a company near and dear to my heart. It's led by none other than Harlan Crystal, one of our most illustrious graduates from Cornell CS. And when I was initially getting up the systems lab after I moved to Cornell in 2001, 2, he was there as an undergraduate and went on to found a fantastic world-class company with a lot of exciting games. So the high-rise metaverse is coming by. It's got 2 million monthly active users. It will be converted completely from Web 2 to Web 3, and they will be able to own their assets in-game. So things like cosmetics, land, etc., that are part of the high-rise metaverse, you will be able to transact on-chain in a subnet. Thrilled about this. I've been talking to Harlan on and off about all sorts of topics, and just a wonderful set of people that we've interacted with. and I cannot wait to play actual high-rise metaverse. I'm going to get back in. My Frogger skills are still pretty darn good. Every now and then I play a game against someone. I'm not that bad on Mario Kart. I'm always going to be a little bit better with a joystick than with the game controllers, but still, these things are awesome, and I cannot wait to play them. Ascenders, it's a Zelda-style ARPG, great gameplay, great graphics. You can craft your own NFTs, you can build structures, own land, etc., etc. So they are coming, and check out their YouTube video if you like it. It's all published online, by the way. So that's coming online soon. And Dummy Online is an MMORPG type game that aims to solve a lot of the problems that players faced in WoW. So a whole bunch of things. WoW was an interesting game, by the way. It was I had a couple of students who worked with me in the lab who were avid WoW players, and I would come and sort of vicariously live World of Warcraft through them. One fellow was really, really good. I'll name him. His name was Psychot, and in real life, he was a great person, like just very chill, always wanted to give things away, etc., etc. Of course, a huge believer in open source. But in game, he was a crazy person. He was like this wheeler dealer type. He was like the Ferengi or something. He would like study the upcoming changes to the rules, and then he would corner the market on I don't know, saber-tooth, tiger teeth, or whatever, some stuff like that. And he actually did a lot on World of Warcraft. Anyhow, Dummy is WoW++, and it's going to be on a blockchain, of course, because you have to in this day and age. And that blockchain is an Avalanche subnet. So that's the kind of activity that we are facing coming online soon. I'm thrilled and can't wait for all of it to happen. Now, let's change topic a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about something else that's near and dear to my heart, which is the Avalanche Bridge. We launched Bitcoin support for the Avalanche Bridge. I think it's been less than a month. It's been maybe exactly a month to the day. And there is $45 million of Bitcoin bridged to Avalanche, even as I speak with you. Be that as it may, that's still no money, but it's going to balloon from here. The market does not understand what this bridge is capable of. They think this is exactly like every other way of wrapping Bitcoin. And, they're used to going to BitGo and doing KYC AML, and then, going through a long process. Then BitGo custodies their token, and then the token BitGo custodies gets issued to them as WBTC, and then they can take the WBTC and use it on Ethereum or whatnot. People are used to this. And Bitcoiners, they take a while to learn stuff for some reason. It's hard to reach that community. They're a little closed-minded. They like to hold the token and not really use it. But that gets them into trouble. Well, how do you get into trouble? Well, they end up having to sell their tokens when they need cash, right? So if all you've got is you bought it and now you need cash, you got to sell it, right? Well, not so. So if you understand DeFi, one of the things you can do is use the coin as collateral. You can say, look, I don't want to sell this thing. It's 23K right now, but as soon as the macro conditions improve, this thing will actually improve in price. That might be your belief or your hypothesis. And you don't want to sell, except you need the money. Well, you can take out a loan against your valuable asset, collateralized with the asset. And how do you do this? You don't have to go through WBTC, that whole entire process. You launch the core wallet, and using your own processes, the trustless mechanisms underneath, you convert your BTC into BTC.B on Avalanche, where then you can use it for any DeFi use that you might want to do. You can put it into Aave and borrow against it. I believe the pools are going to be opening up soon if they haven't been opened up already. You could use it for liquidity provision, or you could just use it to transact with BTC. If you want to pay someone, Avalanche is a layer 2. It's like the Lightning Network, but different technology. The Lightning Network is this complicated beast, and it creates this graph of payments, etc. And you have to route your payment through other people's nodes and so forth. With BTC.B on Avalanche, you can just send the money to anyone, and it gets there instantly. It gets there much faster than Lightning. It gets there with much better privacy than Lightning. It gets there with much better failure modes. That is, it just gets there. It doesn't. Lightning has these failures. They're all or nothing failures, which is the right way to handle failures. So you will get your money either delivered or not delivered, which is good. But there are chances of not being able to route. That is, I want to pay someone, say Kevin, but the path from me to Kevin goes through someone, and I'm not able to route over that person at that instant. That can happen with Lightning. That cannot happen with Avalanche. So a whole bunch of technological advantages, and it just gives you another way to take advantage of your valuable asset. Gives you a different layer 2 to pay if you want to use Bitcoin for payments. Not that anybody does. People pay lip service to it, but nobody really wants to do that. But regardless, it's just technologically a much better system than any of the alternatives. You don't have to go through a custodian. You do this all by yourself, and you possess all the keys for that conversion. After that conversion, it's the same key that you used on the BTC side that ends up holding the token on the Avalanche side. So the same private key controls it on both sides, and therefore we can do fun things. That's why you need the core wallet for this. There are only about several thousand core wallet installations even as I speak. We haven't begun the process of proselytizing, of advertising the wallet. It's just word of mouth. So this whole thing is just getting rolling, and I'll watch with interest over the summer and fall as it grows. So install the core wallet. It'll take about an hour, of course, on the BTC side for your transaction to complete, and then 1 second on the Avalanche side. After that, every operation you do is 1 second. If you're used to Bitcoin speeds, then you'll be very pleasantly surprised at how fast blockchains can work. So try it out. It's cool. It's half the size of Lightning right now. Lightning's got about like $76 or $80 million worth of coins when I last checked. This is now about 45. So, it's not bad. It's not bad for a month's worth of being out there and not being advertised at all. So we'll give it some time and see how it works. It's going to be pretty fun to watch. Yeah, this is the bridge, the amount of money in the bridge. I think when the snapshot was taken, it was 44 million. It's heading towards, and you can take your money back out to Bitcoin. Suppose you don't like Avalanche for some reason, you want to go back, or whatever reason, whatever you might want to do. You can convert the money to, you can take your BTC.B and convert it to BTC at any point. All right, let's talk a little bit more about subnets. So John Wu was on Bloomberg. John Wu, of course, is the president at Ava Labs. I do mostly the technical stuff, and John does most of the business stuff.
So I think what's important is we need to figure out global standards. OFAC is the one thing that is global, but for accreditation and other things, it's different rules, different geographies. And how do you have a truly global system if every region, every country has different rules? That's something we still have to figure out.
John's being very, very modest here, but he's pointing out a fundamental truth. These blockchains that have just one chain, that consist of one single rule set with one chain, are incapable of being customized for different use cases. The world consists of a bunch of enclaves, so to speak, each enclave with its own rules. The rules for US operations are different. In fact, in the US still, there are many other jurisdictions, both legally and also business-wise. So if I'm in a game consortium, then that game consortium has its own rule set. If I'm, if I'm doing financial services in New York, then it's one set of rules. If I'm doing something else in Europe, it's a different set. If I'm doing Web3, it's something different in Europe than it is something, let's say, in China. So none of these single chain systems can accommodate this diversity. You need systems that can create specialized chains for specialized uses. Now, some of these uses, you can say, hey, we'll build those into our one single chain, but you can't really. These are fundamentally different, and the overhead of trying to build these rule sets into the same chain is so high that no one's done it. People don't do this. What instead happens is that our space ends up weeding out people who have any understanding of the world that we live in. It ends up attracting, and it has consistently over time has always attracted the kinds of people who are extreme libertarians, people who believe that there should be no laws, no rules, there should be just one Bitcoin, just the Bitcoin rule set to rule around the globe. Now, fine, I mean, that's an idea. It's just not a realistic idea. I'm not going to knock the idea down. I just, I have nothing against that idea. In fact, I do think that algorithmic rules for managing money are far better than humans managing money. And I will be borne out as we move on in the post-pandemic economic recession world. We're going to see a bunch of countries fail. We're going to see a bunch of people print money like there's no tomorrow. We're already seeing it in certain countries, and it's painful to watch. So let me be clear. I'm not knocking anybody down for thinking that algorithmic foundations for managing money are better than human foundations. But I am knocking people down for thinking that there can be just one global country or just one rule set for the world. There are always going to be differences. You need to be able to accommodate them. And the only way that I know that makes sense, that seems elegant, that seems workable, that can join itself onto the network, onto the system as we have it right now, onto the economic system as we have it right now, is the subnet infrastructure. That's why we designed it the way we did. And so all of these other people, they make a lot of noise about, this, that, and the other. They're not getting it. They're not getting what you can do with subnets. So this is one of the key things that you can do. The ability to create custom blockchains for different use cases. You have a different rule set, well, we can build something custom tailored for you, or you can build it for yourself. That much better. I cannot build custom blockchains for everyone. I'm trying not to be in the business of building anything for anyone other than the platform and the wallet and the accompanying items. But people can build these things, and they are at a very fast clip. And if I take a step back, like sometimes, summertime, on vacation here a little bit, semi-vacation, you take a step back, like what's happening, right, in the Avalanche world. I hope you're getting the same feeling that I'm getting. The world is slowly catching on. They're always going to be all fascinated by moon math. There's always going to be someone who can dazzle you with, some Greek letters and so on. But at the end of the day, the actual value will flow to those chains that can absorb it. Those of you who've been watching me do these podcasts, you've seen me say it on day one, and I've been saying it ever since, and you're now seeing it happen. It always starts with gaming. And so now we've got the gaming companies. It also starts with porn. I'm not seeing porn on Avalanche, but I haven't looked. So that's a different thing. I think porn has already done what it will do. They're fine in their own universe and world. So, but usually it's the illegal stuff that comes on to new technology, and it's the demanding stuff. So what is that? The illegal stuff, I don't care for it. I don't want it. But the demanding stuff, gaming, DeFi, fast assets, fast payment systems, these are the types of things that you're going to see move to the chains that actually work. And what do you think you're seeing? If you watch the last couple of podcasts, what do you think is happening? It's exactly what's playing out. And I suspect this will take a little bit of time before the rest of the world catches on. And I love bear markets because it's not just go, go, go. I bought some crap at like 0.0001 and it went to 0.00001 and therefore I made 10x. It's not going to be that game anymore. In a bear market, it's going to be the value providers who flourish. And I'm thrilled. So we're going to see a fun times ahead. Let's talk a little bit about reliability. Let's switch gears here. Let me take a sip of my coffee. Actually, tea. Take a sip of my tea. So what about Avalanche Reliability? This was prompted by this event that took place on July 8th. Canada's entire banking system went offline. Hello, Canadian people. You had it rough, eh? Love you to bits. Our countrymen to the north. It's fantastic to see that we are now in the business of building systems that are so resilient to Byzantine faults that they just don't go down. In the last 365 days, there wasn't a single microsecond that you could not transact on Avalanche. Let me say it again. 365 plus days of absolutely full-time availability. This is why we build Byzantine fault-tolerant systems. This is why we decentralize. During that time, did we have failures? Countless, absolutely countless. Did we have failures of data centers? Yes, we did. Did we have failures of Ava Labs machines? Absolutely. Ava Labs is a centralized entity internally. Of course we did. My own laptop failed twice in that time period. Okay, so the kinds of systems that we built at Avalanche are truly decentralized. They're decentralized from the get-go. They have the world's best technology for building a blockchain, and that's how they managed to stay up for a full year plus. I actually did not count how long it's been since launch, but this thing has been available without a microsecond of downtime. And I think those of you who know me, one of the formative experiences I had when I was growing up is going to a bank, going to the airport, or going to a ticketing agency, and them saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, our systems are down. Can you come back tomorrow?" Okay, this mañana thing. So this mañana thing drives me nuts, absolutely nuts, even more than the kid who's wailing in the background. It's not my kid, but all right. So this experience of technology not working, technology not being reliable, of me going to see, does this thing, can I do this? And then with some realistic probability, like 1% is way too many, right? With some probability, in fact, it was much worse back in the day, but with some serious probability, you get sent back because the systems don't work. And I'm so proud of what we've built together. This thing really does work. It works so reliably because of you and me and everyone else. We all, as a group, contribute resources to the collective, and the thing is resilient, kind of like the internet. Except it's doing something far harder than what the internet is doing. Internet is just doing packet routing. This thing is doing consensus, it's building a blockchain together with the help of a whole bunch of people. And there are actual actors, bad actors, that are part of the network as well. There are people who are playing all kinds of games with the protocol on a continual basis. And despite that, it's here, it works. And others are getting a lot of hype for trying to get to where we were years ago. So that's the kind of world we live in. It's kind of fun to watch, and we'll see this dynamic play out. We'll see where we go from here. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be fun. So you do this thing as a professor, you teach people stuff, and then they look at you skeptically. They're like, "Oh, is this going to ever be relevant?" That's a good question. And then you find yourself, you watch them actually need that thing that you taught them, and they're like, "Yes," they come back to you like years later. Everything, or not everything, but this, that, and the other thing that you taught us was the key, turning point of my career, etc., etc. So similar thing, I think, is going to play out here, where people realize, hey, if you want a blockchain that works, this is the one that works. And there are many other things that people make a lot of noise over. A lot of influential people have bought into. There are projects whose entire line is to copy us, is to buy the technology, is to bribe the influencers, and is to try to pretend something that they're not. So that kind of thing is going to happen. But at some point, the world will catch on, and it's going to be kind of fun when that happens. All right, other updates. There's yet another release from us. This is the Subnet EVM. It's we changed the Subnet EVM. This is the EVM that people use to create their own EVM subnets. You don't have to create an EVM subnet. You can create anything else. You can create, I don't know, Monero subnet if you wanted to. You could create what else? Zcash subnet. You could do whatever. The sky's the limit. Or you could create a Bitcoin subnet if you wanted to. So just make Bitcoin a lot faster. Just change the consensus sign. But maybe mint with the hashing if you wanted to. So the sky's the limit, but the Subnet EVM is one that's really important because a lot of people want some amount of programmability, and the EVM provides some programmability. So this new version of Subnet EVM allows people to change their fee structure really, really, really easily. They could always do this, but it wasn't easy. Now it's a heck of a lot easier. This was a feature requested by quite a few of the games, and so now they have it. And they'll be coming online at lightning speed. and the tooling is just getting better and better every day. These are all easy deploys for someone who's slightly technical. All right, what else has been on my mind? This topic has been on my mind. Let's talk a little bit about this. We've talked a lot about Bitcoin. Those of you who know me, I love Bitcoin. I don't like everybody in Bitcoin. It's just there was a time when Bitcoin was dealing with this fork issue, and there were people who were saying all sorts of things that were unscientific. And I was a professor at the time, and I had to correct the scientific record. If someone says, oh, the Lightning Network will do this and that, and you know it won't, then you have to say, no, it won't. It won't give you privacy, for example. It will make privacy worse. And, on everything I said about those kinds of things, I've been born right. There have been many papers looking at lack of privacy and Lightning, etc. But in any case, I do deep down love Bitcoin. They're my first actual coin of any value, other than Karma. I built Karma. But my actual coin of any value was Bitcoin because, it was Bitcoin that really made it and created the field. So I love Bitcoin. I care about what happens. And those of you who are new might not know about this big hack or what have you. This big episode called the Mt. Gox, sometimes called the Empty Gox. It was a big exchange, even bigger than Binance is now in terms of what percentage of users it commanded. Not number of users, or definitely not value, but certainly the entire space, in effect, had an account on Mt. Gox. And it turned out that Mt. Gox had lost a lot of the coins that belonged to their users, and hence it got the name Empty Gox. And they were running some kind of a shell operation, and it went under. And so then there was a huge proceeding. They were based in Japan. It was subject to Japanese law. And one entity, I think it's got a proper name, I forget, auditor, I guess. It's a name that begins with an A. In any case, so one Japanese gentleman was in charge of resolving the assets and the amounts owed to the Mt. Gox creditors. They did a hell of a lot of stuff. They liquidated a bunch of Bitcoin to pay people back based on the price at which the system went down. The Mt. Gox company declared bankruptcy. So by then, the price of Bitcoin had crashed tremendously. So they only had to, given the appreciation in price of Bitcoin, this gentleman had to sell a bunch of Bitcoin, but not all that much, it turns out. He still has $3 billion worth of Bitcoin. And the bankruptcy proceedings are winding down. Everybody's getting paid as of that time, according to Japanese law. You and I can debate whether that makes sense. You and I can debate whether that's the fair thing to do, or that's what that class would have wanted. But that is what the Japanese folks decided to do. That's how it's being handled. Now, this gentleman has about $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, and he's going to distribute this to the original coin holders. So that's about 3 billion in Bitcoin being handed out to people who had coins at Mt. Gox pro rata. Many of these people have lost their life savings. They have had to hodl, forced because of the bankruptcy, and now they're going to get the coins back with Bitcoin having appreciated quite a bit. So the question is, I wonder what's going to happen. It's $3 billion worth of BTC. That's a lot of BTC. BTC has a lot of daily volume, but 3B is a lot, and so I wonder what's going to happen. And so one of the interesting, of course, there's going to be some amount that's going to be sold. It's kind of like a giant unlock, if you will. And I know that when we had our last unlock, it was many months ago now. I don't even remember properly. It was like $20 million worth or something of that kind, if I'm not mistaken. It was a small amount compared to our daily volume. You would not believe the amount of FUD I faced. People were like, hey, I'm really worried about the unlock. And we were all like, why are you worried? Our daily volumes are in excess of $1 billion, $20 million. If it were to be dumped, is nothing in terms of effect on price. Well, you can't say that. I can't say that publicly. I couldn't say that beforehand because we were making a price prediction, etc. So we just kind of sat there and took it. And the FUD I dealt with and the stupidity I faced was just amazing. And so what's happening now? Well, there's about 3 billion worth of Bitcoin that's going to be at least partially dumped. You know, I know a thing or two about these things by now, and at least a third of it will probably be sold immediately as soon as it becomes available. So that's sort of the thing to take into account. That's you know, that's a significant pressure. So in anticipation, I think a sensible thing might be to find another asset that has features close to Bitcoin. And if I look down the whole line of coins, kind of like Bitcoin, the one that sticks out is not Ethereum, because Ethereum is not a hard capped asset. It's constantly being minted. But the one that sticks out is Avalanche. That is hard capped. In fact, the minting schedule for Avalanche is very similar to Bitcoin's minting schedule. But we don't have a $3 billion unlock coming up. Like we don't have an unlock coming up from our public sale or private sale, the one before it. So those unlocks have all expired. They're all unlocked fully. And so that's where we are. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see what these people do. They might just go to cash, but you know, they ended up having quite a windfall, and some of them, we'll see what happens. But if you are holding Bitcoin and you're worried about this and you're looking for hard-capped assets, let me just put the chit in and say Avalanche is hard-capped, exactly like Bitcoin, shares many of the features. The Avalanche virtual machine is inspired entirely by Bitcoin. The kinds of transactions in there are one-to-one correspondent to Bitcoin's standard transactions. And many of its features, other than the consensus protocol, are essentially taken from Bitcoin, inspired fully by Bitcoin. You know, we took the best ideas, regardless of source, as long as it was open source, et cetera, and built them into Avalanche. Bitcoin is, of course, the granddaddy of them all, and has a lot of fantastic features. The hard cap, the transaction types, and many other aspects of the system came from BTC. And so there's a lot of kinship between Avalanche and BTC. And it's no wonder that the second asset, the second chain that we supported is Bitcoin. That's why I talk so much about Bitcoin. You know, I do have my differences between the people, you know, between you know, when it comes to technology, right? So the Lightning Network was billed as something that it's not. I said it wouldn't pan out to be too big. It's panned out to be only twice as big as the thing we built about a month ago. So you know, we'll see how it goes. I think there are far better ways of building layer twos for Bitcoin, and Avalanche is acting as a layer 2 for Bitcoin. So it doesn't interfere with the underlying value proposition, the underlying chain, etc. These two things coexist. And Avalanche overall is targeting a very different use case than Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin to win. I want Bitcoin to be the store of value for the world, and I want governments, etc., to actually use Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And but when it comes to transacting Bitcoin fast, Avalanche is the place where it moves fastest and is fully decentralized. All right, last couple of words. What's new on that? Oh, the Landslide network. I forgot about this. It's a new Avalanche subnet. It combines Tendermint consensus with the WASM SDK, but it's going to be part of the AVAX ecosystem. So it's essentially bringing together Cosmos and Terra, what remains of Terra ecosystems, onto Avalanche. This is the sensible way to do things, and you get the best of all worlds. Essentially, you get the AVAX ecosystem, you get pieces of Tendermint, and you get WASM, the ability to compile code down to the Cosmos WASM SDK. I think this is a fantastic idea, and cannot wait to see it in action, and can't wait to see the dApps that are built on top. Ooh, Tokensoft. Let me say a few words. Tokensoft is a platform for doing token sales, and we actually used them for our public sale a long time ago now, about 2 years ago. Exactly 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 2 years and 1 week to the day. And we had a small hiccup, and we ended up completing incredibly successfully. And I think our sale is the marker for the beginning of the bull season. Everyone told me that I wouldn't be able to find more than If I found more than $5 million worth of interest, I would be considered lucky that this was a professor coin, all sorts of things. And we went in and we ended up seeing huge demand. There was like demand in the triple digits. And whatever we offered to sell, I think $42 million worth of AVAX was sold to the public on exactly the same terms as were sold slightly before then to some private investors. We had sold about $11 million or so to private investors. So it's we did as fair a sale as possible to as broad a base as possible. That's how we built up our initial community. That's why on launch we were a decentralized network. We've been decentralized ever since. So we've never been a network backed by VCs. I am not backed by a large exchange. There isn't a single face, a trader person who's shilling us, saying, "Hey, I'll sell me your coins at this price," etc. So we came to where we are because we're decentralized. Every now and then, someone calls us centralized, and it's just like, no, you're just parroting other people. This is the kind of thing that people throw around. Bitcoiners say that to Ethereum people say it to us. It's just so wrong and not supported by facts. So when I hear that, I kind of smile, and it's like it's a marker for someone who doesn't know what they're talking about in my mind. Anyhow, what else is happening? Crypto news. And then there's this. Let me gloat and end on this gloating note. Let me not gloat, but this is what it is. I say a bunch of things. I'm a public figure. Every time I misspeak in the slightest way, I get a lot of crap. So that, I think, entitles me to say, ha, I told you so every now and then, when I told you also, and when a whole bunch of very vocal people did not believe me. So Starkware is launching their own token. I happen to love Starkware. It's great. And they were considered, one of the big ways that Ethereum is going to scale. Of the many, I lost track of how many different ways that Ethereum is going to scale, except it's not scaling. But anyway, so this is one of the ways that it could potentially scale, etc. And they're now launching their own token. When these layer 2s launch their own token, they are competing chains. They're competing chains where typically they're entirely parasitic. Right? They're going to just take dApps that used to be on the main chain onto themselves. Economic activity will take place here and not on the settlement chain, not on the main chain. And therefore, this whole thing about they share security, which people repeat and parrot, and what they really say, what they really mean is we're going to benefit somehow economically. They don't. They're not going to benefit economically. That sharing security means somebody occasionally stores a hash on you. That's not that much. It's not going to consume it's not going to make that much of an economic difference to the underlying chain. So you guys are all deluding yourselves if you think that this is how you're going to get rich, but fine by me. People are entitled to it. But I did say, and I got attacked for saying that L2s will eventually all become parasitic. So I'm getting confirmed over and over. I've said this for every L2. I have take a very downer look on any L2 that's not bringing new assets into the field. Competing L1s are great because they actually make the space richer. Solana is fantastic. They're doing a whole bunch of things in their own runtime with their own dApp language, etc., etc. That's great. Do it. Cosmos, fantastic. Do your thing. And Cosmos people are fairly distinct and separate from Avalanche people. And Avalanche people are actually fairly distinct and separate from Ethereum people at this point as well. They do share the same common Solidity world, but the folks are very different, at least physically very, very different. And we're bringing in new assets that are not going to be able to be housed on Ethereum. You just couldn't imagine them there. And don't make me mention them because I've done it a billion times, and the stupid cricket is like screaming at me, and my voice is cracking up. But we work very hard on bringing new assets and new value into growing this space. So all of this, like infighting, etc., is sad to see. And we get a lot of it because we are technologically the most advanced, and people see us as a threat. So I'm sad to see it, but it is what it is. And it's, again, something on my mind. Another thing on my mind is, I said this. Yes, I've been getting confirmed over. And yes, this is a very common thing for me. That I say things, I get attacked for it, and then people come around to realize, oh yeah, he was right. Yeah, well, I am right. I know a thing or two when it comes to these kinds of systems and what typically ends up being the economically viable solution. At a higher level, maybe the sort of the note to leave on is this: the systems that persist are going to be those that figure out a sustainable business model. And the business model, when I look at all these other people that I see from others, is just generally broken, right? So what's the business model for Bitcoin? There isn't one, and it's not evolving, right? It's what it is. Therefore, the business of Bitcoin had to be a closed one. Like, leave aside all tech, leave aside all religion. Given how Bitcoin works, given how it was launched, then the only thing it could evolve into is what it is today. And so it makes no sense. It took me a long time to realize that I shouldn't expect more of Bitcoin. It's not meant to be the one chain to rule them all in terms of doing everything you want to do on a blockchain. It's meant to be a store of value. That's great. That's what it's designed to be. So similarly, there are a bunch of other systems and so on that are evolving, and some of these things don't have a reasonable model that makes sense. They sell coins and they run out. And Avalanche is different, because we're not going to be doing 100 para subnet, sales or auctions or whatnot. That's asinine. Who does that? Who limits the number of subnets you can have just so they can auction them off? That's just crazy. Who would want to use such a system? If I heard somebody doing that, if I heard that the corner store was like rationing out, the water they sell or whatnot, I would not deal with them. I'd go dig a hole somewhere to find water. Right? Water is plentiful, at least around here. So you just go and just dig it out. And in a similar fashion, in Avalanche, we did not design any of those things. We have a reasonable model with subnets. They accrue a lot of value in the form of bringing people in to the same network, each of whom has to participate in the consensus protocol and needs to stake coins. There is a sustainable economic activity underneath, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes where lots and lots of random people around the globe are bringing their dApps onto the blockchain system in the form of subnets. Anyhow, on that note, I think I should wrap up and say goodbye to you all and enjoy the sun and the sea a little bit more. I hope you are doing the same wherever you might be in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the South, well, enjoy the cold, or come up and visit us up north. It's super, super hot here in Europe, but it is what it is, and we'll deal with it. I hope we can somehow find a solution for climate change as well, and I'm pretty sure that too is going to involve blockchain solutions. But let me not leak more alpha. Let me change the topic, and thank you again for bearing with me. This was again a tour of all the things that had been on my mind for some time. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot going on in Avalanche. There's a lot going on involving Avalanche, but off of Avalanche as well. So in a few weeks, or in just a few weeks, I'll be back to you with some brand new tech that I think is going to change the way the world works. And I can barely keep my excitement contained. I don't want to turn into Kevin, though, where I blab about things that aren't public yet. So I'm going to call it a night. Thank you all. Take care.